Deeper Cinema presents the 10 best films from 1895 to 1919. In 10th place, Ingeborg Holm. From as early as 1913, the oldest film among the 10 finalists, Ingeborg Holm presents the sad story of a woman who loses everything, from her husband to her financial condition, to her access to her children, and even her mind, in a wonderful performance by Hilda Borgström. Victor Sjöström already shows incredible abilities as a director, pointing out paths that would inspire many filmmakers around the world, Griffith among them. Ingeborg Holm was such an impactful film that it changed the history of a whole country. Sweden's population was so moved by it that it began to demand that a social structure be built so that it could better take care of unfortunate people like the main character in this film. One very early proof of the strength of this new medium that was cinema.
In 9th place, Song of the Scarlet Flower. Nature is again very important in a Swedish film of the 1910s, not only in the most literal sense as it is exposed in the beautiful landscapes captured by the incredible cinematography, but also in the personal nature of Lars Hansen's character, a Scandinavian Don Juan who breaks many women's hearts, on a road movie, or better yet river movie, in which he also gradually gains maturity. This is another beautiful Swedish film by Moritz Stiller, who was already a master of cinema even as early as 1919. Song of the Scarlet Flower is a little-known film even among film buffs that should be better acknowledged and appreciated.
In 8th place, Stella Maris. Stella Maris is a very easy film to watch, one that flows dynamically and is, perhaps, of all the 10 best films cited here, the one that viewers unaccustomed to silent films might enjoy the most. Indeed, Marshall Nealon directs the film with ease, preventing it from falling into mawkishness. Anyone expecting a regular film with Mary Pickford is in for a positive surprise, as she is great in a double role, in which she exposes a darker side in her Unity Blake character, who still has a very pronounced human side. Mary Pickford took a risk and was rewarded in this great public and critical success, a remarkable film that conquers everyone who watches it, even those who usually might have turned their noses up at America's eternal sweetheart.
In 7th place, Joan the Woman. One of the first adaptations of the story of Joan of Arc for cinema, and one of the best. Joan the Woman could have misfired completely, presenting an opera star like Geraldine Farrar in a silent film, who was also much older than the legendary character, and with a director who could have lost himself immersed in all the grandiloquence of that French legend. Instead, Geraldine Farrar did a great job, and Cecil B. DeMille shows from an early age that he was a skilled director and not even his usual sins, like the parallel he makes of this iconic legend in medieval times with the present First World War gets in the way of the film. Joan the Woman has beautiful scenes such as the attack on Orleans and the bonfire in the finale, which competently embrace the strength and importance of the myth of Joan of Arc. Since 1916 it has been quite clear that Cecil B. DeMille knows how to direct an epic with practically unmatched competence.
In 6th place, Broken Blossoms. One of Griffith's best films, Broken Blossoms is a sign of a more mature director, one in which he doesn't display the excesses of both The Birth of a Nation and Intolerance. Here fortunately he is more focused on engaging the public in a beautiful and simple story, and also has the audacity to show the ugly side of life, in a tragic tale of interracial love between a poor beaten-down American girl and a tolerant Chinese man. A lyrical and sentimental film that is far from being corny, Broken Blossoms has an inspired Lillian Gish in one of her all-time best performances, a brutal Donald Crisp as her father, and also presents Richard Barthelmess on the verge of becoming a star.
In 5th place, The Oyster Princess. The Oyster Princess is a delightful film, an intelligent and dynamic comedy, by a filmmaker who would soon become a comedy icon. Ernst Lubitsch might not have yet totally established his famous touch by 1919, but he was already making great strides towards it. The Oyster Princess clearly foreshadows some of Lubitsch's greatest classics of the 20s, 30s and 40s, and shows Asia Osvalda at the height of her form as a comic actress, in a witty and clever story that surprises many people who don't expect to see such a charming film from 1919. It is indeed hard not to enjoy this agile and engaging film, which shows that German cinema was already on its way, despite the harsh defeat the country suffered in the First World War, to become one of the great cinemas in the world in the 1920s.
In fourth place, Hearts of the World. Hearts of the World is an improved mix of two of Griffith's most famous films. It has the dynamism of The Birth of a Nation, being an engaging story, and with the huge advantage of not presenting the revolting racism of this film, and equally has the epic grandeur of Intolerance, without having its problems of lack of rhythm and of focusing on too many plots, going back and forth through time, which was not beneficial to his 1916 classic. Hearts of the World also has the merit of being a film about the First World War that was filmed as it was happening and with Griffith having access to some real trenches. It's a strong, engaging film, with striking scenes and presenting interesting performances from a strong cast, particularly Dorothy Gish and Robert Harron. Hearts of the World should definitely be a more well-known and respected film by cinephiles around the world.
In third place, The Outlaw and His Wife. Victor Sjöström directs and stars this Swedish epic of a couple who fights and ultimately runs away from its society. Perhaps this is the Swedish film that better knew how to work with incredible landscapes to highlight the couple's isolation. The Outlaw and His Wife was a success in Europe and around the world, and showed how Sweden was truly experiencing its golden age in cinema. The then clandestine romance between Sjöström and Edith Erastoff in real life, they would later get married, also helps to give even more veracity to all that drama. Incredibly, Edith was pregnant with his child while they were filming, an intriguing case of life imitating art and enriching it even more.
In second place, Jacuzzi. The title says it all. Abel Gance accuses everyone of the absurdity of everything concerning the First World War. The film resembles Wings, but was obviously made almost 10 years earlier than that William Wellman film, and is much more bitter and visceral. It presents a love triangle anchored in pain and regret, with that great war destroying bodies and souls. Being a Gance film, it is indeed a little too long, but it does engage its audience, especially in the final scenes. Obviously, cinema has never had the ability to actually avoid any major conflict, but here Gance shows that at least it has the ability to ask difficult questions and point out less painful paths for humanity.
Best film of the period 1895 to 1919. Sir Arne's Treasure. In what is perhaps the only film from the 1910s that can really stand toe-to-toe with the great cinema classics of the 1920s, Sir Arne's Treasure is a beautiful adaptation of a work by Selma Lagerlöf, the first woman to win the Nobel Prize for Literature. With a film of this caliber, Moritz Stiller proves once and for all that it was actually Sweden, and not the United States, who was at the top of the cinematic world until 1919. The so-called golden age of Swedish cinema would soon be supplanted by the Americans, in no small measure because they imported big names from Scandinavian cinema like Stiller himself and Victor Sjöström, but still it planted here the seeds of the future cinema of legends like Ingmar Bergman. As for the film itself, Sir Arne's Treasure features a remarkable performance by Mary Janssen in a beautiful lyrical and even ghostly story about greed, death, obsession and regrets. Packed with great scenes, a beautiful cinematography and realistic acting ahead of its time, this early Swedish classic proved that cinema could be not only great entertainment, but also a refined and everlasting art.